Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us once again for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission, as always, is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature spanning a whole range of genres to book lovers all around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I am Darren Kazanko, dystopian, science fiction and horror author, reader and one of your co-hosts and co-founder of Australian Book Lovers, coming to you today from a very woolly and windy Ghana country in South Australia.
And I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, voracious reader of many genres, and one or the other one of your co-founders and hosts, coming to you from a wild and wet Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
Yes,
and
winter's here.
Yeah, it is absolutely here, but we have a very special winter wilderness episode. I couldn't think of another W for the alliteration, but there you go.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
That's the only one that comes to mind for me. But you're absolutely right. This is the first of three super special podcast editions, and it's a celebration of a very special awards, and that is the Wilderness Society Karajia and Environment Awards for children's literature. Now, Veronica, we've had the super honour and privilege of chatting with a number of authors that were shortlisted for the 2023 awards. So,
yes.
So for people that aren't aware, definitely jump onto the Wilderness Society where you can learn all about it. But basically, since 1994, the Wilderness Society has been celebrating the best new fiction, non-fiction and picture books written for children that promote a love of nature. So, of course, that means the shortlist for 2023 has been revealed, and that is a former Olympian, an Indigenous pop star, and a 14-year-old entrepreneur passionate about the eradication of ocean plastic. That's just a couple of some of the fantastically diverse authors and illustrators that have been shortlisted for the 2023 Karajia and Environment Awards for children's literature. So, as I mentioned, we were so lucky to have the opportunity to have some group discussions with the picture book authors and illustrators. So we've got 3 episodes coming up, and there's just so much to listen to, so much to be inspired by, and just some really fantastic people to share a bit of time with. But Veronica, who were some of the great authors and illustrators that we had the opportunity to talk with for our first round?
Yes, so just before we jump into the first round, I want to mention the 6 judges who picked the shortlist.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, because they've been kind of recognising the talents of authors and illustrators, promoting that love of nature since 1994. And back in 1994, they had 2 junior judges as well. And the Karajia Awards, they were launched in 2022. They had 120 books for consideration in these awards. So it was not an easy pick, because despite many of them being picture books, because they have the environment picture books, the environment fiction, the environment non-fiction, and the Karajia. So the 6 judges were Sammy Bailey, Leanne Mulgo-Watson, Adam Goods, Hunter Page Lockhard, Alex Paps, and Adam Duncan. And we'll have a little bit more, because we're going to be talking also to Sammy Bailey and Leanne Mulgo-Watson. Sammy judged the Environment Awards and Leanne judged the Karajia Awards, and we'll be talking to them a little bit later as well. Not in this episode, but we're chatting to them. But first, the first session, and it was just amazing, the passion that these authors had. It was just brilliant, and getting them together was almost like we could have stepped aside, Darren, and they could have just chatted amongst themselves, because they're all, thinking about kids, thinking about nature, thinking about the environment. So it was brilliant.
It really was. And look, as someone, I don't have kids, and so, children's books are not something that I spend a lot of time with at the moment. However, saying that, this has been such a really, amazing eye-opener into the world of children's picture books, and children's books. And, it's really ramped up my respect for the craft, the art that goes into it, and, just the wow, I guess the responsibility that comes with doing a children's picture book, because every word has to be just perfect, and
Yes.
every illustration has to capture so much. And, it really was an eye-opener for me. And, I'm just so lucky. Again, one of the real benefits of doing this podcast, because without this, there was no opportunity to share time and learn about all of the wonderful authors, illustrators, and the craft. So, dear listeners, if you're not too familiar with the processes that sit behind putting together a children's book, or the passions and the thinking and the craft and the effort and all the stuff that goes into it, these next 3 special editions are going to be really cool to listen to, and I really hope you enjoy it. But yes, authors.
The authors. So here we go. And we must say a shout out, thank you to Claire Tegan from Pitch Projects. Claire was a publicist for another company, and we did some, she was promoting some of her other authors. But she mentioned that this was on, and we had a look, and we had, how can we do this? And it just kind of grew from there. So with Children's Book Week coming up in August, people, have a look at some of these things. So we've got Sandra Steffenson. Sandra grew up in the small tropical rainforest of Karajia, and she is the illustrator of Looking After Country with Fire, Aboriginal burning knowledge with Uncle Koo. So Sandra's maternal grandmother is from the Taglaka people from the Gulf country of North Queensland, and the author of the book is Victor Steffenson, who is her brother. So there you go. And we talk a little bit more about that when we are in the episode. Our second guest was Jackie Kerrin. Jackie is an author, Australian storyteller and author, and she wrote A Shorebird Flying Adventure, and that came out with CSIRO Publishing. And I mention that because her illustrator is Millie, or Amelia Formby, and Millie, who we talked to in a later episode, is on her microlight adventure raising money for shorebirds by flying all around Australia, and it just absolutely phenomenal, because the shorebird flies from Australia to Siberia every year, like even when they're 8 weeks old or something amazing. So you'll hear more about that. And our third visitor for a guest for this episode is Isaiah Firebrace. Now, some of you may know Isaiah rather than as an author, but as a singer, because he, of course, won the X Factor in 2016 on his 17th birthday. So Isaiah is a Yora Yora and Gundjamara man, and he, together with Jalen Bionaway, and she's a Mananjali and Fijian artist, have written Come Together, Things Every Aussie Kid Should Know about the First Peoples. And he's got about 20 key topics, the things that he felt were really important. So, yeah, just absolutely fantastic. And Isaiah is the young man who petitioned the Australian government calling for Aboriginal history to be taught in every classroom, and did an absolutely bang up job getting a whole lot of signatures, and all of it just raising that momentum. So it was fantastic to chat to these 3 people and hear all about their stories.
Yeah, it really was. And almost it made me feel lazy to hearing, just all the work everybody's doing. And look, it is a celebration of picture books, most definitely, and illustrations. But the other thing that's come out from chatting with all these wonderful artists over as you'll hear over the next couple of episodes, is just the love of nature and the animals and the environment. Yeah. And some really passionate people, and that gives me a whole lot of hope in a world that sometimes can not give you the hope that's out there, because it hides it sometimes, but here's an opportunity to put a spotlight on it.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I guess let's just
jump
step
in.
away.
Yes.
And listeners, we really hope you enjoy the next couple of episodes. There is just some really cool things happening, and really cool conversations, and astounding people. So I'm going to step back and let the real cool people take over.
Welcome, ABL podcast listeners. We have our very first group of special guests for this amazing episode, all about the Wilderness Society Karajia and Environment Awards for Children's Literature. So lots of welcomes. Welcome to Jackie, Sandra and Isaiah.
Hello.
Hello, thank you.
It's a party.
Yeah, I just thought we'd let everybody sort of jump in and make it a general melee, but First of all, I'm coming today from the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people down in Victoria. Now, Jackie, you were first on the scene. Tell us where you're from.
Well, I am beaming to you today from Newport in Victoria. I'm about 12 k's from the CBD, and I am on the lands of the Bunurong people.
Fantastic. And Sandra, what about yourself?
Well, I'm in Karajia in far north Queensland. It's about 30 kilometres from Cairns on the Tablelands, just on the edge there. And I'm coming from the Jabbergai country.
Beautiful. And Isaiah?
I'm down in lovely cold Melbourne on Wurundjeri country. Coming to you from my lovely home.
Excellent. And, we were just having a little laugh about us all being very jealous of Sandra up in far north Queensland and the fact that she's in a T-shirt and we're all really covered very well. Now, we talked about the awards just before we go, and you are part of the absolutely brilliant shortlist for either the Karajia Awards or also for the Picture Book Awards for children, and it's all about love of nature and being passionate about the environment and all those sort of things. So can we just do a quick around the room about tell us a little bit about your book and the importance of yourself, I guess, of your thoughts around the contribution to, the environment. So, Jackie, again, let's start with you. Tell us your book's name. Tell us what it's about.
Well, my book is... Thank you for asking me. My book is called A Shorebird Flying Adventure, and I co-created it with my friend Millie Formby, who is an aviatrix, that is a pilot. She is an artist. She did the illustrations, and she's a zoologist. What motivated me to write the book about migratory shorebirds, I guess, is really where I live. I live so close to the city, but I'm right on Port Phillip Bay, and we have world-recognised wetlands here, which are host to many species of migratory shorebirds. These are the birds that come here for the summer, and then in the winter they take off and they fly all the way to Siberia and Alaska to lay their eggs, and then they come back again. And they are one of the most endangered bird species in the world, and we have them right here next to near Melbourne.
That is amazing. That is an awful long flight.
It's as Millie would say, it's awesome. Totally awesome.
I am amazing and awesome are the words. And tell us about the Microlight Adventures. What kind of got that started?
Look, I'll just wind back a bit. I was interested in these birds for quite a while, and it took me to a shorebird conference in Hobart. These were all scientists. It was a science conference, and I was there with an artist friend, Kate Gorringe-Smith, who does a lot of work to raise awareness for migratory shorebirds, and we got accepted to give a paper each on how the arts can support the work of the scientists and the zoologists.
Brilliant.
Trying to get the message out there. And Anyway, Millie was there, and she got up and gave a talk about how she was going to fly her microlight around Australia and raise awareness for migratory shorebirds. And during the tea break, I bailed her up and said, this would be a wonderful story for children. It'd be fantastic, Millie. Let's do a book. I'm Jackie Kerrin and I write books about nature. And poor Millie was pressed up against the urn there and saying, look, I've got enough on my plate and I really don't know how to write books. Anyway, a few months later, she was giving the same talk in Darwin at a shorebird conference, and the CSIRO publishing unit were there, and they said, Millie, this would make a great book for children, blah, blah, blah. And she said, okay, somebody else has said that. So she got in touch, and we said, let's do this book together, because it's a wonderful story. And you can't care about the things that you don't know about.
No.
And that was the motivation. Let's shine a light on these extraordinary animals.
And kids love adventures, so in discovery, their little brains are ready for anything. All right, yes. Brilliant.
Yeah, and Millie has followed up. She left Perth a bit over a year ago.
Yep.
She's flown her microlight right across the southern edge, across the Nullarbor area there, right through across South Australia, She's currently just left Townsville and flown across Atherton, I think. I meant to check. I meant to check before this interview started, but I can't remember. But that's where she is. Okay. She's now flying across the top of Australia, and as she goes, she visits schools and community groups, does talks, and she's doing an amazing job. And she's got our book as well that she can share as she goes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. So you've got me wanting to get a pilot's license now on ultralight. I want a cruiser. But no, you've really got me intrigued with the book because I live on the coast here in South Australia, and especially in winter when you're walking along and you're sort of on your own, just pondering whatever you might be pondering. And the bigger birds, not seagulls, and I wish I knew the name of them, but they come waltzing in the middle of the storms, and they land on the beach, and they're kind of like, leave me alone for a minute, mate, go catch my breath. Yeah. And I have no idea where they've come from. It's one thing when you're doing a hike or something, you've got all the birds jumping from tree to tree, but these, they're like these weird travelers that come out of, these distant Antarctic weird places and suddenly land there. You think, how long have you been flying? Where
well, if it was a Bartail Godwit, it may have been flying 9 days straight.
Yeah, that's just mind-boggling.
I know, it is absolutely mind-boggling, and they're stunning birds. Yeah.
Do you think they've got little island stops along the way, or do you think they've got a direct route?
It depends on the species. Some do little hops along the way, and this is the beautiful thing. The birds follow a kind of invisible highway in the sky as they fly between Southeast Australia and New Zealand, across from Broome, and then up across Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Thailand. We're getting these countries in the wrong order. Vietnam, Japan, China, Mongolia, Siberia, and Alaska. And this invisible highway is called a flyway, and there's about 8 major flyways around the world that connect, that birds fly, that connect countries. And ours is the most spectacular flyway because our birds fly across more countries, like about 23 countries. They connect us to billions of people.
Wow.
They're not interested in borders and languages and religion and faith, and they fly and they connect us, and they connect those of us who are interested in the birds. If you can look up the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership website and see all the different people who connect because of the birds. It's a beautiful thing.
They should be called wisdom highways.
It should be called Wisdom Highway. It's just wonderful. I've had a few trips lately to Thailand and Malaysia, and I inevitably meet people who are working with the birds there, Singapore as well. And instantly, after I've done the formalities, hello, I'm Jackie, and I'm from Australia, and hello, I'm so-and-so, and I live here. We'll go through all the shy bits. Straight away, we're onto it. Instant best friends. It's a wonderful thing.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It is amazing. And we have the other side of the book, really, with Sandra Steffenson. So Sandra is an illustrator. So Sandra, tell us about your story and tell us about your author.
Okay, well, the author of the book, Looking After Country with Fire, is my brother, Victor Steffenson. And, we sort of collaborated together to come up with the idea of the story of basically teaching, Indigenous knowledge using the idea of the traditional burning techniques done by the Indigenous people of Australia. So Victor has spent a lot of time. He was a ranger up in Laura for a very long time, and he was taught by the rangers up there on the idea of the cool burning to get the country ready for when we do have our dry season, that when the fires do come through, they're not going to be as devastating. So after the bushfires in 2020, he was inspired to start sharing this knowledge because he just saw the devastation that was caused by this. But he wanted to start with children because he thought, well, the best place to start teaching and for this sort of knowledge to be taught is for that age group. So he sat down with me and said, this is what I want to do.
Brilliant.
Share this knowledge, but share it to start off with children so they get to understand this idea.
There's been so much of late, and of course, Australia has had the sort of devastating bushfires, and they're a lot of councils and governments are starting to work with the traditional owners who have all this wisdom about the cool burning and all of the, the custodianship of country.
Absolutely.
And there is just, so much wisdom to tap into there, talking about wisdom highways. Yeah.
Yeah. And understanding like the every single ecosystem's different. So depending on where you are in Australia, it's a different type of fire management.
Yeah.
And so looking at that to help manage our landscapes for the future.
Do you think that's something positive that's come from, those devastating fires? I mean, do you think that this traditional wisdom that's, really been here all along, but just, we've ignored it to a certain point, do you think it's finally being recognised for, as being the important sort of knowledge that we can gain that it is? And do you think it's making its way into standard education, or is this book, really at the forefront of that attempt to get it into education, to make it a sort of something that we all learn as we grow up?
Yeah, I think it's slow. It is still very difficult to do any sort of burning on land unless you get permission. And I guess it's a hard one to answer because up here where I live in Queensland, we do a lot of that sort of cool burning, and it happens quite a bit. But I'm not too sure down in like national parks and forests that it is slowly being taken on board. But yeah, I think it's something that needs to be done by the people of the country and of the land. They need to understand how to manage their own land and their own country. And I think that's an important way of passing that knowledge on, because that idea of ownership and that idea of I need to do this to keep my country safe and where I live safe is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Sandra, you've also got a song at the back of your book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Victor is quite passionate that the best way to get stories across and to get the message across is through a song. So he's created this lovely little song at the end, and it's called "Looking After Country with Fire," or "Cool Burning" actually is the title of the song. And it's really catchy. And
that's what,
and when you go there, there's one of those codes that you put your phone over and it'll play the song. There's also the music there and the words and the lyrics. So when the children go to the end of the book, they get the song at the end, and because it's quite catchy, you actually it becomes an earworm when you do start singing it. Yeah.
Can you hum us a few bars? Are you up for that, or have you got the wrong person?
It's like looking after country with fire.
Very good.
Burning. And I don't really know all the words off by heart, but anyway.
No, that's good, but that's an added little bonus. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's quite passionate with like sharing this knowledge, but he's creating a new book that we're illustrating at the moment based around trees and how important they are for our environment as well. And he's now recorded another song that goes at the end of the book as well. So he's really keen that it's a great way to spread the message as well as using music.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think as someone, as myself, who worked on the old Skyrail there for a little bit.
Oh, really? Yes.
Yeah, and a big lover of Kerrin, of course. I'm thinking the book and maybe even the song could be a really good feature of the gondolas, like especially if there's, when there's a little bit of a malfunction, you just swing in there up there. Maybe you look underneath where there's a deck of cards and some first aid stuff. There can be the book Looking After Country Fire, and the song can start playing while you're waiting for the gondolas to get back in action.
Absolutely.
I think you can get that. And then it'll definitely be an earworm by the time you land in Kuranda or...
Yes. So you used to go on the gondolas up the gorge?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't know if they've integrated it, but when I was there, at one point they were looking into a special midway tour down, an Indigenous tour for a particular little spot there that was...
Yes, they do that now, yes.
Oh, they do, regarding
and they've got the deck,
romance and the...
Yeah, and the deck cantilevering over the falls there now.
Oh,
so,
wow. Yeah, so I was lucky enough to be a test for that one with the guide, so we got to do it before anybody else. And, it's such a beautiful spot. And it was like...
It is, isn't
it? Pretty, it definitely does sort of touch you somewhere. I can't explain it, but there was definitely an energy there. But, yes, beautiful part there. And I think learning about the fire and the magic of trees and the importance of trees is a good place because there's lots of trees.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Sandra, I've got one more question before we slip into chatting with our next guest. Tell me, I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly, Sgraffito?
Yes, graffito.
Tell me about that.
Well, I illustrate, but I like using 3-dimensional work as well. So I do ceramics because I've got a little studio here in Karajia, and I'm right, by a river. But I did a whole series based on because ceramics and with your bowls and your vessels and things that you make, they actually go into fire as well. So I did a series based on the idea of using fire to create these bowls, but also on the outside I would sgraffito, endangered species of trees and trees that are special to this particular environment that we need to keep and make sure that we, propagate these trees. And on top I would put the animals that depend on these trees. So that they were little vessels, and I did a whole series based around that. But sgraffito is when you put a layer of coloured slip over the top of another clay body, and then you can do very detailed scratched in images into the clay body. So it's quite fine and quite detailed. And then the glaze I put over the top, it's just one single glaze, but it reacts with the type of colours I put in the slip that goes over the top, and you get different coloured effects when you fire it, depending on if it's got oxygen in the firing or no oxygen in the fire, so you can get different effects based on that.
Fire is a pretty important part of your life, whether it's your art or whether it's the story. Yeah, fantastic.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Isaiah, waiting patiently in the background there, welcome, and tell us a little bit about your story, because you also have an illustrator, and tell us about Jalen as well.
Yeah, so, well, thank you for having me here today, and congrats on all the other authors as well. It's really great to hear all of your passionate stories and just how everybody out there is, doing their part towards something that I guess we're all passionate about. It's really inspiring. So thank you, first of all. My book is called Come Together, and it's more of an educational book. It's things every Aussie kid should know about the First Peoples, illustrated by Jalen Bayumawai and designed by Keisha Leon. This book is filled with about 20 different topics that I felt very passionate about in my culture, that I think a lot of the wider public and Australia would have a great time reading. And also what I really thought that kids would really enjoy learning and reading about as well. And also things in the book, the topics that I chose, I really felt like maybe kids and the Aussie public have heard of them, like a welcome to country and an acknowledgement of country, or the meaning of the flags, or what totems are, but they've never had that real accessible explanation or definition of those topics. So I really included a lot of things that I really love about my culture, but also what I think people would get a lot out of as well. And it's just been the most incredible journey. Like, this is my first book that I've ever released, and it's just been incredible. Like, just the whole process of writing it and getting it developed and getting it printed out, like everything from the start has just been incredible, because like, I'm a musician and I'm so used to the music world and writing songs and and the way you release songs, and there's a whole process like that. But doing it with a book has just been such a journey and a huge learning experience for me. And I'm really proud of it. I think I think it's doing well, and I think people are really connecting with it. And it's definitely been a passion project of mine. Like, this is something that's been on my heart and something that I'm really connected to. And, I think education and the kids, and youth, they're our next generation, they're our next leaders. And we need to be getting right in there and teaching them the right things, I think. So I really tried to do that with my book, and it's just been really incredible.
So Isaiah, you wrote a petition to the Australian government calling for Aboriginal history to be taught in every classroom. Do you see this as kind of a natural progression to kind of contribute to that history?
Yes, 100%. Well, a bit of background. I actually, in high school, way back when.
So long ago. Let's not talk about how long ago that is for me, Isaiah. So you keep going.
So in high school, I was actually studying to be a teacher's aide. So I've always had a passion and a real love for education and schools and kids and being in the classroom. So like the book was also inspired by that part of me as well. And then also, my change.org petition that I presented to Parliament in 2021. I think it was 2021. I always those COVID years, it's such a blur.
Was it
2020? It's a different timeline.
Or was it 2021? I don't know. But no, I'm pretty sure it was 2021 where I went to Parliament House and presented my petition, which has just about 300,000 signatures.
Nice.
And that is one of change.org's biggest petitions since the platform began. So it was just really, really insane, like, to have that type of support from the wider public on something that I thought I only experienced. Like, I didn't grow up in school with a lot of accessible materials and resources and things being taught in the classroom that I could really connect to as a First Nations kid. So I only thought that I had that experience. So as soon as I started seeing the petition reach the hundreds and then the thousands and then the tens of thousands, I was like, what is going on? It was a real moment for me it was a real moment and a real lesson for me to realize that, it's really powerful to put yourself in that vulnerable position where you are speaking about the things you believe in, and you never know how many people out there believe in that too. And, you could be the one that uses your voice that changes it all. So that was really a moment and a big lesson for me, just in terms of life and growing up and, learning to be vulnerable is actually a superpower.
Yeah, it is a superpower, yeah.
Yeah,
fantastic.
so, the petition was a huge success, and it definitely did inspire the book. Yep. I knew I did want to do a book eventually. I mean, I thought my first book was probably going to be like a biography or something like that.
Yeah,
but I went straight for the children's book, and honestly, it's just been like such a pleasure to be in this space and be in this community of authors and book lovers, and also just connecting with communities and schools and families and people with real stories who have said, I wish this was in school when I was there. I would have loved to have seen this in school when I was there. All of the support and people just saying that they're really proud of it. It's just been really great. Just like awesome. Just a cherry on top.
Yeah. The best kind of feedback.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want good feedback for sure, but just people, really getting emotional about it and saying like, this is connected. Like, like it's all about that. It's all about, no matter what creative thing you do, whether it's art or music or writing or songwriting or being an author or anything, it's all about the connection and connecting. And it's all about having that real impact on what you're trying to say through your art. So it's been amazing. I feel really blessed and really grateful.
Well, huge congratulations for being that it's your first book, Isaiah. But I am curious. I mean, you said that's another platform where there's a whole lot of work that goes into, producing and getting that final result. But obviously, a book is a bit of a tip of the iceberg, isn't it? Like everyone holds in their hands that tip of the iceberg, but it also invites so many opportunities for discussion. So you've mentioned, the sort of the wide impact and the new pathways that have opened from this book. Do you think that it has completely thrown you into a new direction in life? You think this is the opening to future, even more books, and are you suddenly finding yourself on a trajectory you never imagined, or do you think this is this book is kind of you've said what you want to say, or you think it's the first of a lot of new educational opportunities to come?
I would love to still be using my platform for as much change and impact that I can. And like, yes, I've already signed a contract with my publisher for the second book.
There we go.
Two.
Perfect.
So
Question has been answered.
It's great. No, like I'm all for trying new things. I'm all for putting myself in the deep end and in something that I'm really passionate about. And yeah, like I want to use my platform for change and for impact, and hopefully I can keep doing more books and keep going in that direction. And I'm always looking for avenues in different industries where I can showcase myself and my story and use that as a example. Yeah, like it's definitely different from music because like it does open up such a big conversation, and it's like a tangible thing, in your hands. It connects much differently than music, but also in the same way. Do you know what I mean? Like having that in your hands and reading and connecting with it and having your own time with a book is powerful. And you know what? Like I never really actually enjoyed much reading myself, like novels and things, growing up and in high school and things like that. But after being an author now for the first time, I've really seen for the first time how powerful books are and how powerful it is to have the opportunity to have something in writing, in history, that will never ever go away and will have a lasting impact and change. So yeah, it's special. Like it's just been really so fun and exciting, and it's just been awesome.
Oh, beautifully put too. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I ask everyone, thinking about the connection between environment and children, and why do you think that, well, what's your approach, I guess, to having a book and the environment and the story? Do you find that children are really receptive to those messages? Do they pick them up? Do they know? Why choose a book? And, for everybody here, in this session, a picture book. So Jackie, let's start with you.
I'm like, who goes first?
Everyone jump in. It's a party.
Oh dear. I've been so engrossed listening to everything that everyone's been saying. Look, I've got thoughts swirling around in my head in response to that question. It'll probably come out as a bit of a mush of random ideas. I love nature myself, obviously. I see it as very restorative. I see connecting to country through learning about Indigenous land management and connection, and where I am is very significant and important to me. I'm very aware that where I live, if the community here don't step up and take on stewardship roles, what we have could be damaged. Roads and housing and all sorts of dogs and cars and all sorts of things. But at the same time, I don't want to writing books for children. I'm very aware that they're getting a lot of stuff piled on them about the environment and sea level rise and all this. And I don't want to be part of a voice that's just adding to that. Millie and I talked a lot about how to communicate our love and for nature, and she talks about the drama triangle that is often the model that's presented to us all, not just to children. That there's a perpetrator, like it might be the oil industry or gas and coal, the forestry industry, and they're doing terrible things to the
big baddies.
Yeah, they're the baddies, and then there's the victims. In my case, the birds, or it could be the sooty owls up in the mountains, or the greater gliders, whatever. And then they're the saviours, and casting ourselves as the saviours, and it all gets quite heated. And everyone works in the environment space in the way where they find they fit. But for some of us, it's very stressful, that particular scenario. And so when we looked at how to communicate, every word is chosen so carefully, every sentence.
Yes, it is. It's so difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, and even at the very end of writing A Shorebird Flying Adventure, we were saying, oh, we don't want to say, so go down and pick up rubbish and go and do this and tell people to get the dogs off the beach. We thought, no, we don't want to do that. And then Millie suddenly contacted me and she said, I've got it. Imagine a world where. Imagine this world and think about that and hold on to that thought. So create with the words and the concept to create wonder, a sense of, I guess, how precious, how am I making any sense?
Yeah, look, absolutely. and it sounds absolutely beautiful, and nobody would know that I just sprang that question on you and you had to come up with an idea. So thank you. It is obviously that your passion and your knowledge there are excellent.
Well, I was going to say it's the people think you've just written a book, but as Isaiah was saying, and all the thought. It's like an iceberg. There's a mountain of thought and research and discussions underneath it, and then when you get to put the words down, and then later on the images, you're checking against your ideas about how to communicate this information constantly.
Yes.
I love how you sort of went to inspire imagination there. So starting with imagine, and I really like that. And I do really appreciate what you're saying about not wanting to, not add to the anxiety, but that anxiety I can only imagine is probably a little bit heavier than when I grew up. And as much as it's awareness is a good thing, I guess it can be a little bit. But I like the idea of just inspiring imagination and wonder. And if you discover as a kid the majesty of a particular bird or a particular animal, that you invite that wonderment, invite that investigation, and then the threats or the deeper issues, they'll come to light, won't they? By being triggered to investigate the magic of something, rather than start with that heavy threats or stuff,
and connection and friendship and. I mean, I'm just sitting here looking out my window here, and even the plants in my garden, because that's another interest I have is plants. I'm looking at plants from China and South America and that have all been introduced here, just as I was introduced.
Yeah.
It's it enriches my being and my moving through space, and
Beautiful.
Absolutely
Sandra.
beautiful.
Yes,
time to think now.
I have been, and I'd say, I agree with Jackie. The idea that you have to stay positive, but also as the illustrator, because we were doing like the idea of using fire and fire management, but there's also a part of the story as well where they do talk about the bushfires and how devastating they can be, and they always tone down. You don't want to scare.
Don't catastrophize, yes.
Yeah, because it was a scary time. It was straight after those huge bushfires. But also, when you're like creating books like this for children and such a young age, it's about being positive and giving them the knowledge so it empowers them for the future. And that's what it's all about. It's like, if you give them the sort of the tools to be able to work with this, because I do. Like I am a teacher as well, and they are so passionate about the environment, and they are worried about what's going to be happening in the future and what's going to be in the world for them as they grow up. So to keep it positive and to say there is something we can do, there is these tools that we can use for the future, and not to be negative and not to give up and just continue, if everyone does a little bit, then the future can be, positive and bright. And we do have the potential to make, still have all these amazing animals and amazing plants. And all of this is for our future if we do start doing something about it. And, that's the sort of the message in a lot of these books that we're trying to sort of give to children now, rather than that negative that you see a lot on the news and can be scary.
I was thinking about the word grounded. We talk about people being grounded, and I think learning about where you are and whose country you are, and on who's the animals that are here, the biodiversity, I think it does ground you. it's good. It's a good thing.
The thing I like about books is that they're not a soundbite necessarily, like you see on the telly. They've got 7 seconds to give you some disaster that's happening, and it's the catchiest, most emotional. Whereas a book, you can go forward and back and read the pages and read the words, or get that earworm, with cool burning in your mind. But you can go over and over that same thing, and as an adult reading to a child, some of these are for younger readers, you can then talk around and about the story, which is lovely. Yeah. Okay, Isaiah, your shot.
Yeah, I really agree with I think it was Sandra that was saying about like the tone in writing the book, and having to go back and make edits and having it structured in a way that children can remain intrigued, and obviously not lose attention, but also with that right tone, and giving them the power to take the information and use it for themselves. Like, I love what you said about giving them the chance to wonder and to have that imaginative space. I think it can be tricky at times when obviously this is my first book, but working with kids, like it is tricky to talk about serious issues in a way that they can understand and feel like they can be a part of. But even in my book, I've got a topic on caring for country, and what we can all do in our own lives to care for country, and our own responsibility that we have for caring for country and the lands around us, and having that respect. So, I think communicating big adult issues like, about the environment and disasters and things we need to be aware of, it's definitely a skill to have when you're writing a book, to really communicate that very well. And I know that the editing for the book was like so crazy. Like when I thought, when I realized that I'm going to be doing a children's book, I said, oh my God, cinch, like this one's in the bag. This is going to be so easy.
Cinch, I haven't heard that word in a while. That's a good one.
This was one of, in the best way possible, one of the most challenging things that I've done, because even when I thought it was great, like people from my publishers were pushing me to make it better, and just giving me all this advice and things I could use in my book just to make it as best it can be, and communicate the story and what I wanted to say in the right way for kids. And I think it's really special that we're all here, like I said at the start of the podcast, with this kind of passion, for connecting and for sharing those stories with kids, and really having a passion for wanting them to understand. I think it's really great that we can just come together on a thing like this in this podcast and share all of these ideas, because even as you guys are talking, I'm sitting here thinking and learning as well. So
will we have is there going to be a song at the back of your next book, Isaiah?
Well, I'm not going to say, because if I do one, then I've probably stolen your idea. I don't know. Like, that's a great idea, actually. When I heard that, that's so cool. But I'll leave the book stuff and the music stuff.
Leave them separate.
Yeah,
or a duet.
Or a duet, yes.
Yeah, or maybe I could sing your song and then you can come and sing my song.
The Victoria-Queensland combination.
Could I just chime in response to Isaiah saying keeping it separate? I've worked with the same editor on all my books, and she said to me once, I can always tell if a writer listens or makes music. Because there's something in their language,
a rhythm, maybe.
There's a rhythm to their language, sound and syllable and cadence. That she said she said to me, Jackie, I can always tell.
Yeah. Now that you've said that, I do agree. There's like a rhythm, and there is a rhythm, as well that I learned for reading for writing books for children. Like it's that rhythm, that cadence. It's special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some words are quick and harsh, like get, got. They're good words. And sometimes you want that, and sometimes you think, no, I want this to sort of flow. I want this to be more melodic, and now I want a bit of punch into the language. It can be instinctive, or it can be, applied.
Bring a bit of sustain, a nice reverb to the words.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One more music question. To Jackie, you travel with a violinist friend, Sarah Di Pasquale, doing school visits. Tell me how that works.
Oh, we do school visits, festivals. We do botanic gardens, just Heritage Week, National Trust Heritage Week. We did some stuff for. Again, what's instinctive and what are you really sure of? But I feel that when you're telling a story, different parts of the brain will light up and engage. And I'm fascinated by the way we all process stuff, or our audio-linguistic processing. Some of us are better at it than others. And if you use another mode of communication like music, I reckon another part of the brain lights up. So Sarah and I, it all started when our local rangers said to me years ago, we do all this work, this is like at the Shorebird conference, we do all this work in the community, but we can't get the message out beyond our bubble, of friends groups and fellow rangers and scientists. And he said, we need the arts. We need the arts. And I thought, I can do the arts. And, so a friend and I put together a little show of stories. We say, imagine if you're flying along this invisible highway from Australia up to Alaska. What countries would you visit on the way, and what stories might you hear along the way? And my friend Sarah, I'm a classically trained actor, and my colleague Sarah is a classically trained musician, and we researched some stories from various countries along the flyway, and she has put music to them. So we don't. It's very similar to how you do a picture book. If I can say it in language, I say it. But if she can say it with music, she says it in music. We don't do both. So if there's a storm, I don't have to say, there was a big storm. She does the storm.
There she goes.
If there's walking, she'll do the walking, like, maybe a pizzicato kind of sound. So we've done, we've got quite a set of stories now. One around plants and the importation of plants to Australia, and how the landscape's been changed by that, and the birds. So and I just love working with her. She drives me hard. She makes me listen and say, I think you should pitch your voice lower there. And because children adults love it as well. We did the stories for adults as well, and and so that's the theory, that different parts of the brain can light up, and rather than just having me talk for 50 minutes.
Well, I mean, anybody who's watched any footage of Star Wars without the music behind it, you will notice it makes a huge difference, a little bit of music. But I
was going to say too, for many, not just children but adults as well, to sit up close and see someone play a violin with nothing else, it blows them away.
Oh, absolutely.
An instrument you see in combination with other things. But it's very similar to the human voice.
And I'm wondering, for which is obviously an audio-visual medium, really, and have you mastered the art of introducing special bird feed on your shoulder right as the violin's reaching a crescendo, and do the birds come and land on your shoulder? That would be spectacular.
Only in people's imaginations.
Well, because I know in the Currumbin Bird Sanctuary on the Gold Coast, when I lived there, you could go and you could hold out the trays. I think it was honey water, and you'd be covered in birds. And maybe
yes, I went there as a child.
There we go. There's a little element. But do you mind, Veronica, if I jump in and look, I'm so lucky to be talking to all of you, Sandra, Jackie, and Isaiah, and to be in the presence of such awesome, amazing guests. And considering we are talking, basically the Wilderness Society, Karajia and Environment Awards for children's literature, and I know, Isaiah, that you were, wanting to have Aboriginal history taught in every classroom. My question is a bit of fun, but also a bit serious in the sense of, and for everyone, of course. So when I was a kid, I don't know what school's like today, but I know when I grew up as a little tacker through, year 3, year 4, when you're making your best friends and sort of getting an idea about the world around you, I had friends. I had Indigenous friends. I had Lebanese friends, Chinese friends, Vietnamese friends, Italian, Greek friends, Polish friends. They were all just friends. They were all buddies. One thing that really stuck out to me then, and has all through, and it's kind of played a part in my thinking all the way through life. Back then, you'd have your national days. So, people would come in their, for example, in their Greek attire, or they'd bring certain food. There was a celebration, like an international day. And I always felt left out as an Aussie, even though I had Russian background or Polish background and Dutch background. But and even today, I mean, we'll talk about Australian and coming together as kids. And especially, wanting to bring in the Aboriginal history, which I think is such a huge celebration that we missed out on, and I think we're still missing out on today, to be able to be a part of the celebration of something so magical. But how do we bring the kids together? I'm curious as to what you all think of. What does an Australian mean now for kids today? What would a kid do when it comes to International Day? For example, if they were in another country studying and it was International Day, what makes them Australian to bring to that classroom as a little kid?
Well, that's a really hard question.
It is, isn't it? But it should be so simple on paper.
I would.
Yeah.
I do mean like Aussie people, like that have like an English heritage and.
No, I'm thinking more because I don't have kids myself, and it's been a long time since I've been in school. But I'm wondering, for kids today, what is it that we are teaching them, or what is it that we should be teaching them that is fun, that is easy, that also represents what we'd like, which is that coming together of all of our cultures and celebration of, for example, for Australian culture, but in a way that everyone can embrace it and celebrate it as well. Like, what makes us Australian? What do we bring? What's our dress? What's our food? How do we bring it together? Is the First Nations, I think, should be a really important aspect, but is that something that can be shared in that instance? Or is it's a touchy one, but yeah.
There's two, for me, from my perspective, I think there's two types of like quote unquote Aussie culture. Like you've got like, the thongs and your hats and your singlets and your barbecues and the shrimp on the barbie, you've got all that type of Aussie culture. And then you've also got the Indigenous culture as well. And I think bringing both together is what I see personally as what we should be doing for our kids. Like, for the non-Indigenous students, telling them and showing and telling them, letting them know that, this is your country as well. And this culture that Australia has is yours as well to embrace. And then also with Indigenous students, I think showing them as well and teaching and creating that environment where, they can feel comfortable sharing their culture as well with non-Indigenous students and just kind of like embracing both parts of the Aussie cultures, because there are two, I think. And, I guess like overseas, when people think of Australia, I don't think they necessarily think of Indigenous people first, as that being the real culture that they would probably think of, the g'day mates and the barbecues and the shrimps on the barbie, which is amazing. That is a part of Australia's culture. But yeah, I just think creating a space for students in classrooms where they know that they can celebrate both and not feel bad about it, because this is all of our country. And all of these different cultures are also ours to respect and embrace as well. Like, just as you said, with like your international days back in your day, like those type of days, that's where people can be proud and showcase who they are. Like, those little simple things for kids mean a lot. Like, I feel like it doesn't have to be so extravagant and so pressed upon. It can be done in many, many ways. I think that just make it feel like it's the norm. And I wish they would bring back more international days, because like, that sounds great. I didn't ever experience anything like that in my primary school or high school. But yeah, I mean,
there's a lot
it's a tough question. It's a tough question,
Yeah,
but I
it
mean,
is,
like, yeah, just
I mean, I'd love
kids are so impressionable, right?
Yeah,
Kids are so impressionable. So let's be doing things. It doesn't have to be so extravagant, but just, you know, minute things that just keep that narrative going, that we are one. We all do need to come together, and it's okay to have different cultures, and it's okay to celebrate other cultures as well. I mean, it's.
There's a lot of dress-up days still these days. Of course, kids like to dress up as their favourite book character. And I just have to say that there's an awful lot of blueies go to school.
Yes.
So, you know, Aaron Farso and Deb Malman have a lot to answer for in that there's, my great-niece and nephew tell me, you know, blueies is their favourite. And I think, particularly overseas now, that there's a little bit of recognition around that as well. So, yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about children's books, and you know, that's the forefront of bringing the change that we want to see. You know, growing the seeds that we want to see grow. And I would love. I don't know the answer. I don't know how, and I'm far from the person to come up with any ideas. But to have that ability to celebrate First Nations culture and all of the art and the wisdom and the stories and the knowledge that can be brought, but also be a part of it and wear it as well, if that makes sense. To be, like you said, to sort of come together and be as one. It's a fine line, but it's the kids today that are going to be the ones that are going to hopefully bring that line together, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in everyone's thoughts.
It's coming slowly but surely. My great niece and nephew are learning Wurrung. They go to school over in Healesville, and that's their language that they're learning as well as English.
Yeah,
that's
like
brilliant.
there's a lot of societal changes in the past couple of years in industries and companies, and you know, really embracing a lot of First Nations culture. Like you see it everywhere now. There's you know, a lot of people do see that as some sort of like ticking the box and just doing it just because, you know. But I think it's really great, and I think the kids are the next leaders, and I think as they grow up with this exposure to something that has always been hidden, is going to just create that change. And me being, you know, a bit of the younger generation, seeing how my generation are, it's definitely so much more diverse. A lot of people in my generation and younger don't really care about like race and sexuality and things like that. It's all very celebrated. So I think it's looking very, very positive for the future. And just in terms of my book and how well it's gone in schools and communities also really shows me that as well, that there's this need and that there's this want for that change, and people actually want to come together. I've had conversations with a lot of teachers and staff members that have always said, like, we've always wanted to teach, but we've never known how to or what to say, and we don't want to offend anybody. And it's just bridging those little gaps between it's just building those bridges between what people feel like they can be doing to really make a difference. And because a lot of people don't want to offend, and you know, and if things can be touchy, and you want to be saying the right things. So I think just even talking about it and having that conversation just makes people feel much more comfortable and like they can make a difference.
Every single person, as Jackie was saying, or I can't remember, Jackie or Sandra, a little bit, everybody doing their little bit. So we were originally going to have a chat for about 20, 25 minutes. We've now gone just close to an hour. So I'm going to say thank you for your patience.
But these are important, important chats, and I'm learning so much from everybody.
I've got an interview at 1:00.
No worries.
Sorry.
Okay, so final word, Isaiah, you give us your final words and you jump off then if you need to, and I will just say a quick
Thank you so much for having me a part of this, like just to be, even in the mix of all these amazing authors like you guys. It's incredible. Like, this is my first time being an author, and it's just a great space to be in. I think we're all passionate about so many things, and it's great to come together. No pun intended. It's great. It's honestly great to come together and share these stories and this passion with each other. And I think it's awesome. And I'd just like to encourage everyone here as well. Keep doing your thing. Keep believing, and keep putting your bit of your soul out there, because it will make a difference.
Lovely. Thanks
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And might I just quickly say that I'm super jealous as an author, because to have a surname Firebrace, that is an author's name. That's a best-selling author name. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all your thoughts and the kindness to generate your time. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Anytime. Take care, guys.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So, Sandra.
Yes.
Looking after country with fire, Aboriginal burning knowledge with Uncle Koo. What's your final words? What is the last thing you'd love to share with the listeners?
Well, I just want to say again, like Isaiah, thank you for having us. And as an illustrator, I'm not the author, so yeah.
Did you have to beat Victor off to get on the podcast? Or was it sibling rivalry there, or what?
No. I think he just is so busy all the time that you
we're pleased to have you.
Yeah, but for me, it's what I love about being an illustrator is that there is a script, and they give it to you, and they just say, illustrate, go for it. And I just love that. Like, it's like the words, and then I use my imagination for what I think children would like to see, and I get to put that like the words into some sort of visual literacy that works with the story. And I really just found that, because this is the first time I've ever also illustrated a book. So it was a great experience, and I really enjoyed the whole process.
What do you think, Sandra? Is this the first of many collaborations on children's books?
Oh, yeah, we've got a second one already that's on its, it should be out by next year. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And how's Kuranda nowadays? Is it hustling, bustling?
Well, we're in our, prime time, winter here.
Oh,
so, it's just beautiful at the moment. Absolutely. Just totally blue skies. There's not a single cloud in the sky. So,
nice.
It's just as beautiful as it always was.
Yeah, so I used to live in Smithfield, so it was only a short drive. I'd go there any morning I could to relax and get a coffee. I remember all the interesting characters that I met and saw.
They're still there.
Oh, yeah, but do you remember going back? I don't know if you were back there back in, I think it was around 2014 when the big solar eclipse.
Yes.
And it was, Cairns into, it reminded me of, it was like the UFOs were coming to land. There was people from everywhere. It was fantastic.
I
it's spectacular solar eclipse.
Yeah, they all come out of the woodwork. All the forests, I should say, yeah. This is my home. I grew up here. This is my hometown, so it's nice to come back. I've only just moved back here 5 years ago, and I'm right on the river, right on the Barron River. So
nice. That's
I'm in an ideal spot now. Yeah.
Right, between Cairns, Tablelands. Coffee works still up there? You can still get the good coffee?
Yes. Oh, yeah, good coffee, good ice cream, all of that,
She's doing the good sell here. But anyway.
You've got all the good inspiration for illustrations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Back down in Newport. Thank you, Sandra. Back down in Newport. Jackie, final words about a shorebird flying adventure.
Oh, I just wanted to say was in Kuranda in the 1970s.
And that would have been amazing.
I would just love to go back. And I remember visiting the train station, the famous train station with all the flowers. It's Kuranda, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we lived right down the street from that train station. We lived in town, so not far from that.
I can hear the Led Zeppelin and smell the incense burning through the rainforest already.
I think that The station master loved hanging pots, and it was just covered in flowers.
That's good.
It was stunning. So down in Newport, my last words, yes, to echo Isaiah and Sandra's words, yeah, thank you for inviting us to speak about the work. Awards being shortlisted, they throw a spotlight onto one's passion
Yes.
and help get the work out there. It's hard, you write a book, it can just come out and sit there and, sell a couple of hundred copies. But if you're acknowledged, if the work's acknowledged via an award, it really does help shine a spotlight on it. And so I know all authors are incredibly grateful when shortlisted, longlisted, or even better if you win a gong. It's fantastic for the work, and the work is what it's about. And Shorebird Flying Adventure is my 5th non-fiction picture book for children, and everyone is a favourite. But this one, I guess, because of where I live and because the birds actually come here, and it's very close to my heart.
Very special. Yeah.
So,
That's lovely.
Yeah.
There were 120 books received for consideration for the award. So I think, count yourself amongst the absolute cream of that crop, being in the handful of books who were shortlisted. So thank you again to all of you for being here, and to Jackie, Kerrin, the author of A Shorebird Flying Adventure, to Sandra Steffenson, who's the illustrator of Looking After Country with Fire, Aboriginal Burning Knowledge with Uncle Koo, and Isaiah, who has popped away now for Come Together, Things Every Aussie Kid Should Know About the First Peoples. Been brilliant to chat with you, and thank you for going way longer than we anticipated, but we really appreciate your time and energy. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour. I really appreciate it, and we hope you keep in contact and let us know any cool things happening with the book or the new books, or any adventures that the publishing of these books will bring for you.
Oh, yes, I forgot to say, all of these books, of course, are going to be on the ABR website on the children's pages, and these ones particularly will be on the picture books, yes.
Absolutely. But thank you very much to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's meet again when magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.